My biggest fear would be when the first comes and I don't get the rent.
I found that my tenant had dumped concrete down my toilet. Can you believe Fair Housing fined me $5,000 for that?
How do you onboard your tenants? What do you do?
I don't even know if I do it right.
If you're a landlord, don't just rent, rent perfect. The Rent Perfect podcast with property expert and private investigator, David Pickron.
Well, hello. We're here at Rent Perfect. Glad to have you. Subscribe below, follow us, and get some good information. Scott, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, I got a fun little project going on down in Tucson, Arizona. And
Those words don't always go together, fun and Tucson. But
well,
I'm going to go with it.
No,
I'm just kidding. I love Tucson.
You know, it's interesting because their city council right now is in the middle, and it's going to pass because they just don't see any opposition to it. But they're doing a little bit of protecting source of income.
Okay.
So anybody renting in the city of Tucson in the future will not be able to deny Section 8 housing if they apply.
Citywide.
Wow. Does not excite me about buying my first property down in that
Right.
city.
Which you just did.
Yeah. I find this out after the fact, but it's okay because it's not going to really affect me as soon as I tell you what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm one of those old school people who feel like it's my property and I want to do what I want with it, and I don't want the government telling me what I can or can't do. But in some jurisdictions around this country, the government is your partner, and they're going to tell you exactly how to do things. And in a way, with fair housing, they already are your partner.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
we just try to keep them as silent in the back as possible. Okay, but I've kind of changed my approach as I have bought probably my last 7 or 8 properties. I've kind of really figured out who my tenants are going to be before I buy the property. So I used to hunt property. And then when I found a property I like, good deal, then who's going to move into it would be my second.
Yeah. You're hoping to get the right tenant.
Right.
Yeah.
Now I'm trying to find the market and the best bang for my buck and really focus on what would that tenant be looking for and then really narrowing my properties there. So, for example, I hooked up with a traveling nurse organization.
Okay.
And in Tucson alone, they have currently, I got the listing this morning, they have 53 vacancies where they have 53 people, nurses, looking for homes in Tucson that aren't available. So they have way more demand than they have supply.
Yeah.
And some of these nurses that are coming with maybe small families want 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom homes. And some of these nurses are single and they're just looking for a room in either somebody's house or maybe a landlord that rents all the rooms to traveling nurses.
What's the term of these rentals?
And they get 13-month
contracts. So they
contracts.
sign, okay.
And sometimes they can extend those contracts. But you're looking at 3 to 6 months. But you're also looking at them paying a lot more money because it's a furnished place, utilities included, short term, which, like we talked about, the supply is not there. And so with this home that I bought in Tucson, just give you some numbers. I bought it for $230,000. I'm probably going to put $30,000 of rehab into it right now. After I put 25% down, whatever, payments about $1,100 a month plus utilities. I probably would get on a long-term rental $1,600 a month out of it. Maybe make $300.
Yeah.
It's
not a cash cow then.
No, but and then we'd love the appreciation.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
In this case, I'll rent these single bedrooms for probably $800 or $900 a piece. That's a 3-bedroom, so there's 2 of those, so that's $1,800. I'll rent the master suite out for about $1,300. Okay, so what is that? $3,100.
Yeah.
So you can see that I have just times my cash flow by 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Doing it this way, but there come some challenges to renting by the room. Okay, so we have a friend who had a pretty tragic story. This is going to get a little bit rated R, guys, if you need to plug the ears or fast forward. But what's the story this weekend that happened?
Yeah, it's pretty ugly.
Close to home. We know these people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a gentleman who had signed a lease with his father, right? I mean, he had signed a lease with his father. His father rented him the property, did it right the books, signed a lease, did everything legitimately. And then as he took possession of the property, sought out a roommate, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And she about half his age, I think. But yeah, a young roommate moved in, and during probably what happens with roommates is there's disagreements at times, and this one got escalated, elevated voices, probably anger, screaming, and it ended up with the individual who was leasing the property
From his dad.
from his father shooting his roommate, I think in the face,
Mhm.
and ultimately killing her.
Mm-hmm.
So really a tragic story.
And then tried to kill himself.
then tried to kill-
but
yeah,
wasn't
tried to-
successful
Right.
there. So
So now he's in the hospital recovering, and
yeah. So sorry. It's tragic. Tragic stories close to home with us. But so the dad calls and says, "Is there any way this is coming back on me as a landlord? I've done everything. I've done my lease. I
Right.
know he's my kid, but and I don't know if there's an insurance claim there. I'm not sure, but." He wasn't responsible for any of that going on. But here's the main thing. He wasn't the one that arranged the girl to live there. His son did, who leased the place. And that's where that story is relevant for me, because as I do this traveling nurses with this property down in Tucson, I'm signing an individual lease, which each of these nurses, I'm the one responsible for putting them together.
Yeah.
And so now if I don't do proper background checks, if I don't do everything I can to protect these nurses, that could come back on me. So let's take his story and say it was different. Say he rented to his son, and then he rented to another person. He never did background checks or disclosed that his son had an extensive rap sheet and put this girl in danger. That's not what happened, but just say that's the case. Now, there would be a claim against him saying, hey, wait a minute, you put me in a vulnerable place in life, your home, with somebody who had a history
That you knew about.
and you never said anything to me. Therefore, I think that could come back on them. And so
absolutely.
we always say, hey, when we have roommates in your homes, put them all on the same lease. They all can be responsible to each other. But if you're going to do what I'm doing, which is now renting by the room, there's a little bit more onus on me to make sure that I do everything I'm doing.
Right.
Now with Rent Perfect and doing the background checks, I feel great. I know the hospitals do background checks in addition to these nurses, and so I'm feeling pretty good about going down this road. I don't think I would want to rent by the room near the college, but I have a lot of friends that make a ton of money doing that. I'm just always nervous about getting in the middle of two people because, Scott, you're one of the nicest guys I know. I mean, is there anybody that you couldn't be friends with?
I don't think so. I'm friends with just about everybody I meet.
Okay. Could you live with anybody out there?
Probably not.
It's a different
It's
situation,
a different situation, yeah. Yeah, that 24/7 situation versus, hey, let's get together and have dinner once a month or hang out and go to a game or watch UFC or something like that. That's a different relationship.
I went to college with my best friend from high school all 4 years, and within 2 months we were fighting. I mean, there's just something about living together which is different.
Right.
And so if they're roommates and they put that whole situation together themselves and they get in fights, I don't care as a landlord. You guys picked your roommates.
Yeah.
But imagine now if I bring in a nurse, 2 nurses that somehow one doesn't clean the common area kitchen and one is a clean freak and they start complaining to me. I have to make my lease way more specific about the rules of the common area of the house. So I'm going to lease actually the bedrooms. There are 4 walls.
Okay.
That's your lease. And then almost like an HOA or something, there's a common area.
Shared it. Okay.
And I got to make sure in my lease there's rules of the common area.
Right.
And then I'm going to get in a situation where he said, she said, I'm not there. So there are some specific things in your lease that you're going to need if you're going to rent by the room.
Yeah,
So-
you by being creative, which I think you have been with this, identifying, you have introduced some complexities into the situation that aren't always there. So,
but it's going to be manageable.
Yeah.
It's going to work out great. And we're going to make a lot more money off that property than if we just did a long-term hold. It's a good purchase if it's a long-term hold, but I'm having now as an investor, I'm really trying to stretch my dollar.
Right.
And getting creative and seeing the demand, the supply and the demand in certain areas. If there's a need for the supply, those are the properties that you want to go after right now.
I do have one quick question for you.
Yeah.
So can I charge a common area maintenance fee for that common area? I mean, that's an interesting thing, right?
Well, I imagine that would be in your rent already, and that's probably why you're going to pay a lot more for, I mean, combined $3,100 for that market's not going to hold that where that is, but with 3 individual people, it will.
Right.
And so, it should be interesting. I've done a little bit of this before, just briefly, but this is going to be a fun project to kind of take on. And if you're thinking about renting by the room, I've got the attorneys doing the lease and all so I'll be excited to go through that process. We're still rehabbing the kitchen. We ripped out some walls, made it just a nicer area. So
I'd love to do a follow-up in 6 months on that just to see how it's going.
Yeah, that's going to be fun to see.
Yeah.
It's time to go out and get creative and make money.
Absolutely. Love it.
Thanks for joining us today, and until next time, continue to rent perfect.